Right, going back to the top story, the ASEAN-India summit held in Laos. Joining me is Ambassador J.S. Mukul. He is a former Indian ambassador to the Netherlands and Oman. Ambassador Mukul, welcome to DD India News Hour. How do you view the one optics and two outcomes of the ASEAN-India summit?
Good evening and thank you.
Welcome.
The ASEAN-India summit is particularly important in my view because it marks the confluence of two fundamental planks of India's foreign policy. One is our neighborhood first policy, because ASEAN, the Southeast Asian region and the ASEAN countries are part of our extended neighborhood. The second, as part of our Look East policy, which has now been upgraded to the Act East policy.
Right.
So these are two very fundamental planks of India's foreign policy, and I think ASEAN is right in the middle of it. As you have just pointed out, Prime Minister took the opportunity to reiterate to ASEAN the importance of ASEAN unity, the importance of ASEAN centrality, which we have always been emphasizing with regard to all ASEAN-centric organizations. That is on the substance of it. Yes, the optics have been very good. I've been watching on your channel the kind of warm welcome which the Honorable Prime Minister received, the various programs. He has attended the Luang Prabang cultural show. There was the Buddhist blessing ceremony, which we are just seeing. So I think, yes, and of course, the entire ASEAN leadership is there in these summits to interact with our Prime Minister. It is also opportune that the 21st India-ASEAN summit coincides with the 10th anniversary of the Act East policy. And therefore, I think it is in that sense even important.
Indeed. Ambassador Mukul, Prime Minister Modi says in his intervention there at the summit, India-ASEAN friendship is important amid global conflicts. What did he mean by that?
No, basically what he's saying is that first the summit did two things. One is it reviewed where we are in terms of India-ASEAN over the last many years, particularly the last decade, and then of course charted the course for the future. As part of this, what he is trying to say is that these are India and ASEAN today are two major poles in this multipolar world as we view it, and they're coming together. And he referred to the Asian century, the 21st century being the Asian century, and in that the two poles of ASEAN and India will play a very important role with regard to peace, stability, security, etc.
Ambassador Mukul, you rightly referred to India's Act East policy, which completes 10 years this year. In your estimation, how has it redefined or reshaped India's engagements with the Indo-Pacific in the last decade?
If we can just take a step back,
sure.
India started with its Look East policy in the 1990s. In fact, while we have always had excellent relations bilaterally with each of the ASEAN countries, these have been supplemented and complemented, and if I may say, reinforced by the India-ASEAN at the multilateral or regional level.
Right.
We started with what is called the India-ASEAN sectoral dialogue partnership in 1992. It was upgraded to a full dialogue partnership in 1995. It was further upgraded to summit dialogue partnership in 2002, and then to strategic dialogue partnership in 2012, and now we have since 2022 ASEAN-India comprehensive strategic partnership. Basically, this itself shows the kind of progress that has been made through the evolution in terms of the India-ASEAN relationship. And that, I think, is absolutely important. In between, we have also had the commemorative summits, particularly the last one in 2018, which was the commemorative summit to mark the 25 years of India-ASEAN relationship or partnership. And going forward, we will again see a lot happening, which has been today put forward with regard to the future, charting of the future by the leaders of the two sides.
Indeed. Ambassador Mukul, people-to-people ties is a key or central pillar of India's engagements with the countries in its neighborhood and beyond, including ASEAN. We keep hearing a lot of talk about cultural connect. In that context, do you think there's scope to leverage or harness India's age-old ties with ASEAN?
No, absolutely. I think the Lao chair, the Laotian chair of the summit has very appropriately decided on the theme of connectivity and resilience. And as part of both of this, I think there's a lot to be done with regard to people-to-people contacts and connects. We heard of the fact that there are 7 of the 10 ASEAN countries where we have direct flights. I think the Prime Minister announced that we will soon have it to Brunei also.
Right.
There are scholarships, 300 scholarships being given to ASEAN at the Nalanda University, and I think the Prime Minister again announced that we would be doubling this, not just for the Nalanda, but also for the agri-tech universities. There is also the new Indian embassy established in Timor-Leste. There are, of course, a large number of other people-centric activities that have been said. In fact, as part of his 10-point program, which he announced, there are a large number of areas. For example, if I can just give just a few examples,
Sure.
Youth Summit, the Startup Festival, the Hackathon, the Music Festival, the ASEAN-India Think Tanks Network, Delhi Dialogue, etc. So I think all these are actually people connect. And the other important thing, I think, which was announced is an ASEAN-India tourism year in 2025. Now, I mean, there are, as I said, 10-point program, a large number of it's a very rich menu of decisions
Absolutely.
Going forward. But I think the point that you asked specifically, a lot to do with regard to people-to-people contact. In fact, there is also the women scientists thing mentioned, ASEAN-India Women Scientists Conclave. There is, of course, the doubling of the scholarships, which I referred to. And then, of course, on the resilience side,
Right.
number of issues.
Ambassador Mukul, sometimes what takes place on the margins of a summit becomes equally, if not more important. In that context, how do you view Prime Minister Modi's talks with the leaders of Japan and New Zealand on the margins of the ASEAN-India summit in Laos?
See, every multilateral or regional meeting or summit has the great advantage of these meetings on the sidelines.
Right.
There are formal meetings on the sidelines, as has happened today. There are sometimes, because of scheduling issues, there are pull-aside meetings. But I personally think these are all absolutely important. The one great importance of today's 2 meetings that you referred to specifically, I think you can understand that these were the very first meetings between the Prime Minister and the Prime Ministers of Japan and New Zealand.
Right.
Japan had a new Prime Minister, so obviously that was the first meeting with Prime Minister Modi with Shigeru Ishida. And with regard to New Zealand, it was also the first meeting with Mr. Christopher Luzon. So again, as you would say, yes, these are not full bilaterals in the sense, but I think they make a very important point. There is a obviously, the leaders can only visit that many countries, but these occasions, the summit sideline meetings are, as you rightly pointed out, as important, if sometimes not, maybe even more important in some ways.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. I will have to leave it at that. May I thank you, Ambassador Mukul, for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated.